Some of them want to make vlogs. Only one wants to make Kirblog. And that one person is me, because I mean, what other person on YouTube with a curb in their name would be doing this? Anyway, hi everybody. This is another late night, not quite last second one, but it's my only free second that I've really had as of late. It's been a very, very long week, and it's not even really done so far. I'm very emotionally and physically exhausted from a lot of shit that's been happening for multiple reasons, not the least of which has been the copious amounts of death of many wonderful people. Obviously, by the time this is coming out, this has been after the passing of Alan Rickman, as well as Brian Bedford, both of which are fantastic performers that, just like David Bowie, I grew up with, listening to their work as a kid. And again, as I said before, in the case of Mr. Bowie's passing, not that I expect anybody related to Mr. Rickman and Mr. Bedford, but my condolences, regardless, go out to all of their family and friends and fans, etc. 3Fs. But I wanted to, I guess, kind of in that same sort of light, as it's been, kind of a downer sort of month thus far. Not all bad, of course, but just a lot of stuff like this that's okay. Well, I figured I would kind of maybe tackle I guess a not so happy subject, but one that I think is important. I feel a little silly because this is one that I know I always say I've been sitting on this question for a long time, but I feel a little silly because I waited, halfway through the school year to answer this one. So I apologize to the person who sent it, but either way, hopefully this is a better late than never kind of situation. This one comes from Yugi Craft. Hey Chris, I have a very important request for a Kirblog. The reasoning for this question is school is starting up in my local area, and I'm a freshman this year, and I have no idea on how to budget my time or what to do, or what to do. So I'm wondering if you could maybe do a how-to guide on how to survive high school. Thank you very much for the kind words. I do also, again, apologize, as I know that you sent this question to me a while ago, and we're now again halfway into the school year. So I hope that your freshman year has been going all right so far. I know that it's kind of a trial by fire, but yeah, I felt kind of jumping off of. I should thank everybody first of all. Thank you very much for anybody and all who listened to the previous Kirblog of this week about the story about my friend Ray. That was just kind of unexpected, but I wanted to share it. I felt that it was an appropriate time to talk about it. But in that previous Kirblog, in case any of you happen to not hear it, I talked about how middle school in particular, I'm getting to high school, of course, but middle school is a particularly, I feel, a very difficult time for kids growing up, because it's generally it's ages 12 through 14 or so. And that's a period of time where you don't always necessarily know exactly what you're doing or what you want to do. And, kids are mean. And so it can be some of the most, harsh time in terms of being bullied. Middle school was not particularly pleasant for me. And high school definitely was a bit of an upward climb, but definitely to a nice plateau of something to strive for, I would say. I will preface before I because this is going to be probably a very stream of consciousness sort of Kirblog, because I don't know how long or how short this one will be. I don't even really know how much I have to say, but probably a lot. So we'll see how it goes. But either way, to preface first, I should say, I grew up as a nerd. I grew up picked on and made fun of, but just to be real with any listeners that this might concern too, or just to put everything on the table. I grew up as a white American kid who was perfectly well off in my life, and I was furthermore, while obviously getting picked on, no matter who you are or what your background is, getting picked on sucks. I was never beaten up. Never once did I ever get physically attacked or abused or bullied or anything like that by anybody. I was picked on and teased and made fun of, and I had anger issues about it as a kid, and I had very major trouble controlling my temper about it. But But I honestly, my childhood was not so like, oh no, woe is me. It was so hard growing up. Like, I'm sure I've probably touched on this a little bit in various Kirblog's where it's come up. But I personally feel like in hindsight, the reason that I was picked on so much is because I was very, very annoying. And you could say that I still am. Some people would probably very much agree with that. But the point is, like, I think that in retrospect, I wasn't like, my childhood was not like, oh, so bad or whatever. So that's just to give some perspective. But the reason that I'm prefacing it with that is because, a lot of different kids who have a lot of different things, going on in their lives, have different levels of issues that I guess could be considered first world or otherwise. This is what my perspective is, and it's entirely, what mine is, and so it very well could be different than yours. The other thing too is I really don't know exactly what it's like to grow up as a kid now, in like the digital age, because the digital age was really beginning for me by the time that I got into high school, and I'll be tying that into it. I'm still in the intro phase as I'm talking about this fucking 6 minutes in. But it's all important. I hope, we'll see. We'll see. He says that now, but, that was what my kind of upbringing was. And it's funny. The other kind of interesting thing about this is, I had a friend recently who, they saw Inside Out, the Pixar film, and, they enjoyed the movie just fine, but they felt that like Riley, was like Riley, her issue being like, oh no, I moved and I lost all my friends and now I don't know what I'm doing, with myself, was a very first world problem. And I'm like, yeah, that's totally fair. And like, I related to that because I moved in elementary school and lost a lot of my friends. And then eventually I got them back when, I went to a different middle school, but I was still in the same state. I was still in the same, like, general place and everything, but I still understood where she was coming from. That said, that's a very just common, like, basic kind of like, oh no, sort of problem for kids. Not to devalue it, but in comparison, there are, far worse things to happen to kids. So when I heard that perspective, it's like, okay, you know what? Even though I enjoyed the movie for what it was, and I thought that was a perfectly fine issue for them to have Riley, the character, going through, I'm interested and respect that, that kind of viewpoint. And that's the reason why I feel it's important for me to put this information out ahead of time, about, kind of what my sort of deal was, because it really wasn't that bad. And I know that there have been other kids who have been beaten up and like attacked and like really, really picked on, much more heavily, much more severely, for, much less deserving reasons than what I was picked on for. So I just wanted to put that perspective out there because I just like to be transparent about these things, and I don't want, I don't want to come off like, oh, like I had it so bad and I had to deal with this. But the other reason why I wanted to talk about this, regardless of all that, is because I feel like there are certain, I guess, kind of like baseline things for anybody and everybody, going through, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, those 4 years of high school. Although that said, I think for some regions it's 3 years. I think it's like 10 through 12th grade or something. I'm not sure, because like I think that elementary, middle school, and high school are kind of set up differently depending on where you are. But regardless, high school. By the time I got to high school, I'm pretty sure I knew what it was that I wanted to do with my life on a grand scheme of things. I'm fairly certain I knew that I wanted to be in the entertainment business, and I wanted to work specifically in, creating. I think I hadn't quite wired it down just yet to animation specifically. I think I was just thinking about like making stuff. It was like TV shows, movies, video games, books, anything at all creative that I could possibly do. I wanted to, it was because to me, it was just about storytelling, and, I didn't pick up Flash until, the Flash and kind of the beginning of my whole life with, animation and doing stuff on Newgrounds and everything. That wasn't until my second year of college, of high school. Whoops. College, that's a different one. But in my first year, I had definitely been exposed to Newground stuff by that point. I had been seeing a lot of the people that I would later grow to be colleagues with and had worked with on different things, a lot of my own projects. But before that, I had just been, like I had been drawing stuff, I had been writing things, I had been making little movies and like PowerPoint and things like that. Yeah, and then even when I finally picked up Flash in second year of high school, and I started making like a lot of my really early stuff on Newgrounds, like even way before Parody Rangers and even before TV Tome Adventures, when I was doing a lot of the just like random like little Flash things that I was just kind of experimenting around with. I still didn't know that I wanted to work specifically in the animation business. I was still just thinking about it purely as like, I'm a creator, right? And again, I was kind of telling a little bit of the stories about this with the stuff about Ray and the previous Kirblog. But, up until that point, my stories had really just been kind of like enjoyment for myself and my friends that were involved with it, especially if it was in cases where like there were characters based on them. And a lot of it, especially in the kind of primordial version of Balancing Act, it was a lot of us like, role playing and like, acting out these different story ideas that we had, or, particularly that I had because I was kind of like the pseudo dungeon master of my group of friends when I'd come up with like these different story ideas for us to act out and portray and everything like we were performing it, I guess. But, but it wasn't until I think high school that I was like really starting to think about, okay, what is it that I want to do with this thing that I'm passionate about? And it was over the course of those 4 years that I began to formulate, okay, what do I have to do to make those things a reality? Which then eventually finally led into, by the time I finished and graduated, then I knew what college I wanted to go to and, and then pursue what it is that I was doing. So this is the second preface now. So the point about that is my sort of guiding light. My guiding light throughout elementary and middle school, when I was being really heavily picked on, were my friends. Because I was a weird kid and I was a nerd and I was loud, annoying, and ridiculous or whatever. And like even going back another month to Poke-Sember, when I was talking about in that first one about how I got picked on for being overly obsessed and obnoxious about my fixation on Pokemon. The people that I clung to and that I trusted, some of which I knew all the way up until the end of high school, and one of which I still know to this day, Mike Lucas. Those are the people that I was able to find solace in, because they understood and they didn't find me annoying. And some of them eventually did and eventually jumped ship for probably very understandable reasons. But yeah, like those are the people that I was able to like feel safe with and feel comfortable with and be able to just focus on the things that I was passionate about. And the reason that I incorporated all of them, that was the reason that I incorporated all of those people that, left that positive impact on me, like Ray and like Mike Lucas and other folks like that, into my creative passion. I wanted to make characters kind of in tribute to them, for the fact that they had made me feel so good about myself and they had made me feel comfortable and happy. And, and I tried to, really kind of do anything that I could at any point to give back to them as much as I could. Probably not like in this conscious, like I'm doing something good for them. Like, I think I was just kind of expressing my gratitude in whatever way that I could, because I was too dumb to really grasp the concept of like, of anything. There was still so much for me to learn about just being good to people in general. Probably because I was, treated badly by a lot of people throughout different points. But I digress. My guiding light became kind of, again, in tandem with that, was my creative passion and wanting to, and knowing exactly what it is that I wanted to do with my future. And, so in terms of managing my time, to kind of go to a specific point about this question, what I did about that was I would basically, when I get back from school, what used to be, I'm going to go home and play video games for hours, which, I still would, obviously, because, when you're a kid, and living in America and you have game systems, you do that, but, what I started to do was, oh my God, I have the ability to start making these things that I want to do a reality. Even if they're on a small scale, stuff like on Newgrounds or whatever, I'm still making things, and I'm, hopefully honing my craft and getting better at what it is that I want to do. And so, what became more of that was, okay, now I'm managing my time by spending time being creative and making stuff. And especially by that point too, by the time I got into high school, I had made a lot more like internet friends. And Skype was becoming like this big thing in terms of like, oh, now I'm, interacting with people over the internet all the time, and doing all this shit. And that was good because I think that allowed me to meet a lot more different kinds of people that were also interested in the type of things that I wanted to do. So I was able to learn a lot, about the good and bad side of different people, lots of different kinds of people through those years of, this would have been 2003 or 4 to 2007, I believe, was throughout that time basically. But yeah, so that was a really good experience. That it was an experience that was important. There was good and bad. There were a lot of things. So as far as and then going to high school itself, I tried to make use of any time that I had, during school itself to really focus on those creative efforts and prepare myself for, okay, I know that this is aggravating because it's 4 years of having to deal with this, because school isn't fun or whatever. But I can just try to really focus on the future and what it is that I know that I want to do now. That's the other thing too. Sometimes my kind of general, like the very, very quick general advice that I give to people, in fact, actually, and if you're out there listening, Kenneth, here you go, as promised, if I found an appropriate time. So when I was visiting home over the holiday, I went to Nintendo World Store with Mike Lucas, and we were hanging out on the top floor, and there was this kid. He was 12 years old. His name was Kenneth. He was very nice, and he was a big fan of Tome and all the stuff that I'd done for a really long time. And he was very nice. And he asked me a whole bunch of questions. And I tried to answer as many of them as I possibly could because we were only going to be there for a little while. I didn't know if I'd ever see the guy again. And he was very nice. And I tried to give him a lot of advice about as he was going to be entering into high school. And I think I believe I said this. And Kenneth, if I didn't say this, then feel free to out me in the comments below because I can't remember if I did say this or not. But I bet I did because this is typically my offhanded advice to people about high school, or not even just so much advice, but kind of like the reflective thing about those 4 years those 3 or 4 years that you spend in high school, where high school is something that I personally feel the thing that you learn the most when you're in those years is you learn about other people, because I don't know, maybe just because I was in a more creative field, but then again, no, that's not true, because there are creative people that come from, math, science, social studies, history, and English kind of backgrounds. But what I'm saying is I feel like the basic, like those basic classes, like there's very few, I don't know, maybe I'm totally wrong, and correct me in the comments. I'm serious about that. I'm not being sarcastic. I feel like there's very few people that do like go into like a lifetime career based on one of those like basic, like generic school subjects. And that's the reason that I say like the actual like school work is not so much like what you learn. Like it's still important. It's instilling like, basic knowledge that you should have about all these kind of things that you just need to know about in general, like for life skills, of course, So I'm not devaluing that, but I'm saying in terms of like on a really big grand scale, the most important things that you learn in high school are about other people. And because I think, and at least again I know I keep saying that over and over, but I really do feel just because like I don't know what it's like now, and I don't know what it's like for other people, but I experienced and met a lot of different types of people in high school, and both on and offline and at school and out of school, etc. And granted, I've met a lot more different types of people now in my adulthood, but I think that the variety that you get kind of exposed to in that time, where everybody is beginning to figure out what it is that they want to do with their lives, is very it can be very impactful. And I say impactful not in like in an exclusively positive or negative way. In fact, honestly, it's both, and it has to be that way. You have bad experiences in those years because you need to learn. You know, I had to learn. I got expelled. Not expelled. I got suspended. Jesus Christ, no, I didn't get expelled. I got suspended. Whew. I got suspended actually in my freshman year of high school. I got suspended when I mouthed off to a teacher too badly, and everybody knew, and it was bad. And, that was the signification of, okay, I really need to keep my anger under control. I was especially embarrassed because I mouthed off to a teacher who I liked, a teacher that I actually like was who was very inspirational. In fact, her name was, well, I won't say her full name, and actually I won't say her name at all, but because I don't want that to turn into something bad. But this teacher of mine, she was an art teacher, and actually, in that class, just a little side note, just for some trivia for you all, we had to listen to. Yeah, I don't think I've actually ever told this story, and this might be interesting to Tome fans. TTA was like not made yet. It was not. It was in like early like story stages and like ideas that I wanted. When Mike and I were thinking about doing it as a comic or whatever. Mike had moved back from New Jersey at the time. If anybody knows the whole story of Tome and everything, like I've told it a million times. And we had come up with all the characters and kind of the very basic idea for the story. But anyway, we had this one assignment where we were in class for this computer art class with this teacher of mine I was talking about, and we had to listen to a song over and over and over and over again for the entire 45 minutes or however long the class was, and we had to draw an illustration based on what we were thinking and what we were inspired by with this piece. And so I drew an illustration of Alpha and Demon Alpha in what was at the time the Z Tournament Stadium that was being all like fucked up by all the graphics and like junk data and everything flying anywhere. Those of you who have seen TTA will know the specific part I'm talking about, and those of you who are fans of Tome, it was basically like something along the lines of that big pivotal scene where Alpha goes back to the tournament stadium. In episode 10, the finale of season 1, basically. And what we were listening to was the opening from the official soundtrack of Stephen King's Needful Things, which I've still never seen. But it was, if you've ever heard the soundtrack or seen that movie, it was the very opening track. I think it's like a maybe 5-minute track. And that eventually became kind of an inspiration for what was later Catch It, the Shadow Guard Beasts theme in Tome, because kind of like a throwback to that. But anyway, it's a little mini story for you. Anyway, like that, but that outburst, and thankfully, it was no hard feelings. And even like when I've gone back to visit high school once in a while, and I see that teacher, she was it was totally water under the bridge, and she was actually very proud of like how far I had come and everything. And she was very nice. So if you're listening out there and you know who you are, thank you very much for that great experience. Which brings me to another good point: teachers that you can trust and that get you. Not all do. Many teachers are just there to do their job, which is completely understandable because that's their life. That's what they're doing, and they're just trying to get through it and do the best job that they possibly can to serve you and to accommodate what they're being asked of. And depending on the school and depending on where you are and etc., that can be completely different. But I would like to assume and hope that no matter where you are and no matter what your situation is, there are teachers at your school that get you. They get what you're all about, and they like you, and they're not going to treat you like you're stupid. They're going to treat you like you're, they're going to treat you like they understand you, that they get you. They get like, okay, you don't know what you're doing yet. You're trying to figure out what you want to do, and that's fine. And anything I can do to help support you when you're trying to figure that out, I will do to the best of my ability. And there were many teachers. I could, maybe like offhandedly about 5 or 6 different teachers that I knew, both teachers and like assistants and counselors and just different staff members that were like genuinely supportive. And that's not to badmouth the other ones, but the other ones were doing their jobs and they did their jobs. But there's other ones that kind of sometimes you get like a connection to. Sometimes you feel like you can trust them with like, okay, like you you get where I'm coming from, and you're not talking to me like I'm just some stupid kid or whatever, you know. There were many like that, and I'm very grateful for all of them. Admittedly, in my case, a lot of them were art teachers, and you know, I imagine for any of you all listening out there, if you have particular interest in a different field that has nothing to do with with like entertainment or whatever. You might have a great connection with a science teacher or an English teacher or a math teacher or a history teacher, etc. Or maybe even, depending on your extracurricular activities, maybe like, gym teachers or music teachers or otherwise, etc. Funnily enough, another little mini side story, because Mike Lucas and I were reminiscing about this earlier. Middle school, we tried some extracurricular activities. He and I took track and field together, and that was not a fun experience. It was very just like we didn't want to be there. And then on my own, I tried a chess club, and I lasted maybe about a month, and I was like, I don't care enough about this. I can't be dedicated. So and don't feel that don't be afraid to experiment around a little bit in terms of like, if you really don't know what your interests are, if you don't have that thing that you're passionate about to like find sort of solace and safety in. When I say safety, by the way, I don't mean in that like, South Park, haha, like safe space kind of way. I just mean like for yourself as an individual, and like, okay, like this is what I care about. This is the thing that like I am all about, that sort of stuff. It's okay to not know what that is as soon as you get to school, because again, I didn't necessarily know for sure either. I knew that I just liked creating and storytelling, and I was beginning to formulate that. It didn't happen until the end, where I really knew what it was. And I took two different, just kind of on that note too, I took two different test college programs before I graduated. One of which, of course, was to the School of Visual Arts. And funnily enough, it was for the cartooning major and not the animation major. It was for doing comics, because me and Mike and Zach Bellissimo and Mike Carbuccia, who Booch Daddy from Parody Rangers is based on, and a few other people, a bunch of other friends of ours. We all had this one other teacher who, again, I will not mention names, so if you don't, hopefully nobody crazy bothers them, who is sorry, I'm trying to play it safe because it's the internet. Nobody take offense to that. But this one other teacher of ours, he was our comic book illustration class teacher. That was one of the special classes that we took. And he was really cool. He was, again, very, very particularly supportive of us, and he got us. And he pushed us as well. Like he challenged us and gave us a lot of different things to think about that we probably wouldn't have on our own. And that was definitely a class that was worth it. And I, tried to stretch some creative legs with that. And yeah, at the time, like I knew that I wasn't like really big into comics, but I wanted to learn more about drawing. So I took that, and then that was what led me to taking when I went to the SVA 3-week test program. I took the cartooning major as opposed to the animation major, which I just didn't really even think about. And then by the time that I finished my final year of high school, and by then I had done, I was finishing up TV Tome Adventures. I'd started doing the Parody Rangers series and all that. I'd kind of become a little bit more enveloped in the Newgrounds community at that time. I was. I knew that animation was it for me, and then thankfully by the time that I graduated, I chose to do the animation major at SVA. But again, getting ahead of myself. But I'm saying it didn't happen overnight. It wasn't just like animation and making cartoons and that's it. That's the thing for me. It's like no, and you don't have to know what that is, even really by your third or fourth year. Because kind of going back to the advice I gave to Kenneth as well. Because his mom was there and she was very nice, and I mentioned that's, if you want to do college after that, that's a discussion that you guys got to have. That's completely up to your decision, because if you got to figure out what you want to do by that point. He was talking about wanting to do creative stuff as well, but he wasn't sure if he wanted to make games or cartoons or be a programmer or an artist or anything, And I was saying like, hey, don't worry about it, don't rush into it, same kind of thing I'm talking about here. And and again, sometimes it's not for everybody. Not everybody can figure it out immediately, and it takes them all 4 years or even beyond to really hone in on what specifically. Sometimes I now, after all the shit that I've gotten to do, that I've been very lucky to have been able to do, sometimes I still don't know what the fuck I'm really the best at and what I'm really the most passionate about. Sometimes it changes. It's why I'm fortunate that I do a lot of different things and that I'm able to and able to sustain myself doing all of those different things. Going back a few subjects ago, the other thing that I kind of realized probably too late, and this I've talked a little bit more extensively on. I did a Kirblog called Picked On last year that actually did very well, and I was very happy that people were taken by that. But basically, to just kind of surmise one of the main points about that, because to tie it into this, going back to what I was talking about, getting made fun of and teased by people, kind of what I discovered too late about being able to deal with that is that there really was no point in letting those people affect me. A piece of advice that I was given by a lot of different folks that often annoyed me because it's like, well, it's not that easy to just do that, just not care. And honestly, I still have difficulty letting things go and not caring because I'm very emotional, and I don't even want to say sensitive because I take things that I care about very seriously, to the point of sometimes like it affects me too much and it can be very self-destructive. That's still something that I deal with to this day, but that's why this piece of advice, to finally get to it, would often be kind of like, shut up already. That would often be the reaction that I'd have to it, where it's like, you can't control how other people act. You can only change and choose how you will react or act in general. And, because my response to that was like, well, yeah, if people make fun of me, of course I'm going to get angry. But what I did to circumvent that, and I don't necessarily, I'm sure I said this on the Picked On Kirblog too, I don't recommend this route because it can be something that is not healthy for yourself. And thankfully, I didn't stick with this kind of mentality because I was able to have perspective later. But my way of dealing with when people would make fun of me was basically I took a superiority complex. And it's ironic because still to this day, there are people on the internet who think that I'm very up on myself. Like all throughout my life, maybe that's my fault. Maybe that really is just entirely because of the way that I present myself. But a lot of people think that I think I'm hot shit and that I'm so fucking cool and that I deserve all these fucking accolades or whatever. And I really don't. I can be very down on myself, and I often very, very much am down on myself. And I definitely, it's why I often say when I give advice on these, even something like this where it's not like a creative thing, but I'm like, I'm not an authority. I'm not, this is entirely just my perspective. I even said that on this one too. Yeah, I don't consider myself that way. In this particular instance, the superiority complex that I took with these people that were, constantly making fun of me and bothering me at every fucking turn was I had this mentality of like, okay, these people are probably not going to fucking amount to anything. They're going to be flipping my McDonald's burgers at best. And I'm going to go off and do something with my life that I actually give a shit about. And, maybe some of those people did, but probably not. So that's kind of why I would say that mentality isn't the best to take, and it's not what I recommend that you do. You got to deal with it in your own way. If that works for you, then great. But the reality is it's probably not that way, because I think that that's also like a very I'm the nerd and I'm going to get revenge on you kind of like stereotypical, like stupid way of dealing with it, because, it's like, I don't know those people. For all I fucking know, maybe they're all completely successful and living totally normal lives and they turned around and aren't douchebags anymore. I have no fucking idea. And I won't, and I don't care, because by the time that I finished high school and I went to college, I was surrounded by people that were in the same kind of interest zone, and I had more to worry about with that. But it's not to say that I obviously don't still have friends that aren't in the entertainment business. Obviously I have, plenty of folks that are just like normal people that I know. But those are not people that, pick on me So it's kind of besides the point. Anyway, but where am I going with this again? Yeah, that was my, again, stream of consciousness type of Kirblog, bear with me. Also, I'm half an hour into this, so thanks in advance to Amy for editing this one, because she's always saving my ass. That was my way of dealing with it. And the thing is, I didn't get that. I didn't like, start thinking that way about things until my last year of high school. And I think it was because I was just so fucking jaded and tired. And by that point, I had also been, I'm pretty sure by that point I had honed in fully on like, okay, I want to do animation and I want to go to the School of Visual Arts and take the animation major, right? I think that by that time I had a fair idea of like, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I'm going to do. And, I was, of course, again, enveloping myself in doing the Parody Rangers trilogy, and I had finished up, TTA, up until a certain point. I had a really good, trustworthy set of friends, most of which I'm still totally cool with, which I'm very happy to say about. So I was in just a much better place in my life, I think, by that point, especially compared to like middle school, where I was just like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing kind of thing. So that was good. And I'm very grateful that I was able to have all of those, again, good and bad experiences. And, and again, even like in retrospect, there's a lot more that I could have learned, if I had taken a different route, but I don't regret, not really. I don't really regret my path, because it's like, it's all still learning experience. Everything that I do, especially like, I used to say this about my work, in that like everything I do is an experiment. It's a learning experience and, a step up to, the next big thing. But I think that also just, you could say that about life. I was about to say like, you could say that about high school, but it's like, no, you can say that about life, everything. Yeah, everything really is an experiment, really. Really. Everything is just like, it's an experiment, like in the here and now. And then, you just move on to the next, and hopefully it's like, all right, I leave that behind, and now I go on to the next thing. Unless it's an ongoing thing, like marriage. I don't know. But yeah, high school is absolutely not easy. It's a very different kind of challenge, I feel, from middle school, because middle school is just like I've mentioned before, my idealization of middle school is nobody knows what the fuck they're doing, and everybody's kind of an asshole, and everybody's, hopefully going to figure themselves out. High school is, you are in the process of figuring yourself out and figuring other people out and learning as much as you can about all those other people in the world. Learning about the world in general, I think, is the better kind of way to describe that. And maybe that's very like airy-fairy, like, what the fuck are you talking about, man? Whoa, kind of thing. And fair enough. But I don't know. I think that high school was a good primer for the real world. And college was an even better one. Because by that point, I think that it's crazy to think at some point there was a very, very brief period in my first year of college, because some shit was happening, and I was feeling very lost again, and I was like, I miss high school. And thankfully, that didn't last for long, because I didn't really miss high school. I was much better off in college and in that kind of environment, thank God. Yeah, so I guess to kind of go back to the more of the question at hand, budgeting time out, once you begin to have a better idea of what it is that you are passionate about and want to really learn more about, because that's the thing too about, I'm not even saying just in regards to college, because maybe to any of you listening out there, maybe you don't want to do college. Maybe you just want to jump straight into getting a job. Totally fine. I know plenty of people that are working adults and fantastic people that did not go to college. It's not a requirement. It certainly helps. And if you're able to afford it, because, I would not blame you for, if you can't afford it or just don't want to spend the fucking money, because my God, it can be a lot of money. Still paying off those student loans, and I probably will be till the day I die. But sorry. The point about that is you have to have like a certain skill set to exist in the real world, in not even the real world, the world, in society. You have to You have to learn to be a functioning adult, you know. And you know, even when you're 18 years old, you're still a kid, you know. Hell, even when you're in your fucking 20s, you're still a kid. You could be considered in some ways. So it doesn't just stop, you know. And as I've, you know, often said and made a whole nother Kirblog titled after this, you never stop learning. That is very important, is that you continue to learn and to improve, hopefully, and not regress, you know, because we don't need that. In terms of just surviving, you know, because it is school, not even just high school, but school is a survival test. It's, you know, it's getting through a set amount of years that, you know, is required of you. And, you know, for better or worse, I think that that amount of time, you know, that long, like 18-year period of your life, you know, feasibly depending on, you know, however things go with you, it's important. I think that long of a time, you know, may even really be needed, you know, perhaps in this modern age. I say all of this stuff, again, I have to reiterate, I say all of this stuff with just the perspective that I had. It may be completely different than yours. You may have a completely different life setup, you know. And I can't even list how many different types, because there are a million different types. But this was what my experience was. It was what it was, which, you know, I know that means nothing, but it's I think that there are definitely some general kind of universal, in that sense, things about growing up and these 4 or so years of your life, you know, when you're reaching adulthood, and you have to like learn to be an adult, you know. And look at me, I'm Mr. Meeseeks. Look at me. I you know, didn't until a couple years ago, however long it was, that I did that one New Year's resolution Kirblog about how I want to feel more like an adult. And, you know, and even though I do, there's still a million things that I'm learning about life and about people and about myself. But that time in high school was definitely a good primer for the periods in my life that followed, you know, for both my time in college, for my time out of college, and the 4 years that I did tome, to this new era that I'm in, where I'm sustaining myself and living on my own in a different, on the opposite side of the country, opposite side of the continent, really. Yeah, I feel like it's a very important step, and high school for, you know, for us, for people, you know, who are able to go to school. And I think that for us, it can be, and I think it is a privilege, you know, and I'm not fond of that word, but it kind of is, because it can be a great opportunity, you know. I'm not saying that in the sense of like, oh, it's the greatest years of your life or whatever. I think that's bullshit. If your parents say that, then well, you know, that's their perspective. That's their experience. Maybe high school was wonderful for them, and that's good. But, and again, maybe it's different. I don't know what it's like now. I have no idea. I imagine it can't be too different than what I went through, because the digital age was beginning at that time, and people were certainly getting involved in it. But it's an opportunity and a privilege for us who have the ability to, and the resources to go to school and get an education. That, you know, we're very lucky to have that. It's a good opportunity to learn a lot about everything, and have a lot of good and bad experiences to help slowly but surely shape us into who we are. And we still might not know who the hell we are by the time that we finished it. And to you who asked this question, which I appreciate very much for sending it in, you might not know, I'm turning into fucking William Shatner, you may not know who you are, or what you want to do, or what you want to be by the time that you finish high school. But figure it out. It's like, cool, skip to 44 minutes in, figure it out. Good, that's the answer. Sorry. No, but take the time to figure it out. Take as much time as you need. But those 3 or 4 years that you're going to have now, half of one, now that we're, halfway through a year, can serve as a great era in life to fall down, get back up, get on top of things, get on top of your shit, and discover, in all aspects of that world, of that word, in the world, where I'm slowly losing my mind and losing my sense of being able to speak. I hope this helped at all to anybody listening for all 45 and a half of these minutes so far. I very much appreciate it. Yeah, I would say, just, stick to your guns, really hone in on exactly what it is that you care about. Hold tight to the people who you care about and who care about you in return, and give you the, the respect and the dignity and the care that you deserve in return, for how you are. And it won't last forever, unless you get held back. Don't get held back. Just get your shit done and don't get held back, because that's not fun for anybody, for anyone. Thank God I didn't have to go through something like that. And I know very few people who did. So yeah, just stick it out, and it'll be over before you know it. It'll feel like it goes on for fucking ever, but it will be over. And then you can be like, oh, thank God it's over. And you'll be a much better person, hopefully, for it. So that's going to wrap us up. If anybody has any questions further about this that perhaps I can answer in the comments, I can't guarantee that, but if there's anything else I can say about the subject that would be helpful, perhaps I can. Or if you have further questions, maybe to expand upon this topic, more, kind of sub things within, going to high school, let me know. Leave a comment about that for a future Kirblog topic suggestion, or you can also leave one on Tumblr, Facebook, Twitter, whatever you want. And that's going to do it. So thank you all very much for listening. Again, I hope this was helpful or interesting at all. I never know. But that'll do it. And I'll see you on the next one, whatever that might be. So, yeah, catch you around.